I know a healer. I know a healer. His name is. Say it again. Shout it. The air trembles when you shout his name. And then the doctor went on to say to me, he said, we can do something now that we've never been able to do before. He said, we can now check a person's DNA. He said, we've not been able to do it before, but we can do it now. He said, so we decided to check yours. He said, we did. He said, Reverend, when God raised you from the dead, he removed the APOE genogenetic marker for heart disease out of every cell in your body. He said, that is impossible. It cannot be done. There is no way anyone can ever tamper with DNA. It's impossible. They have to admit it's an act of God. Nothing they did worked. I'm telling you, people, when the doctors say no and they send you home to die, there's another voice that says, try me, try me. His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. Because every miracle begins with an impossibility. When man can no longer help, Jesus steps on the scene and defies the prognosis, the diagnosis, and all of the impossibilities. Jesus. So, since I've been raised from the dead, Brother T.W. Barnes prophesied to me about a year before he passed. He always called me boy. He said, boy, the next 10 years of your life are going to be the greatest years of your life. He said, you're going to put less into it and get more out of it than you've ever gotten before. He said, God has raised you from the dead to preach the fivefold ministry in its fullness. He said, I've never known of God to raise anyone from the dead to keep preaching. He said, so preach it. So what I'm preaching here tonight is part of this fivefold ministry. And I've heard Anthony Mangan say 4 or 5 times since I arrived, just here today, I want the miraculous. I want the gifts of the Spirit. I want these things. And he does. So, you're safe here. You can try this stuff out, and nobody's going to give you any trouble. You might as well just try it out. People are so concerned about their miserable reputations. All the reputation I have is what God gave me. I don't have anything else but that. So I'm going to do it, no matter what. And I'm not afraid of anything anymore. I don't care who you are, what your name is, who you think you are. I'm just not concerned. I was living for God before I met you. I'll be living for him afterwards. But this thing is real, and I'm going to preach it like I've never, ever preached it before, because I've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. This Jesus is powerful, and he is wanting to come into this world and just bear his arm and demonstrate his power, but he's got to have a channel to flow through. Hear me tonight. Hear me. The more you understand who you are, the less you care how others view you. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter about anything. All that matters is that God is for you. If God is for you, if God is backing you, preach it, preach it, preach it, tell it, just go at it. Clap your hands again, all ye people, and rejoice. So I'm beginning to tell things I've never told before. I've been into a lot of this for years and years, but I've just never told it. For example, when I first got out of Bible college, I went to upstate New York and worked with an older pastor and his wife, lived in their home for 3 years and helped them to pastor 5 churches he had started in that area. and eventually ended up pastoring one of them myself. During the time I was there, he knew a preacher in the St. Louis, Missouri area whose name was Kenneth Reeves. I didn't know him, but this pastor did, and he invited him to come and preach 5 nights in our area, 1 night in each of those 5 churches. So he did. Brother Reeves was a lawyer, as I recall. He's written books. He was a brilliant individual. So we went to the first night service. I've never seen anything like this before or since. He preached, and it was eloquent. It was tremendous what he preached. But then at the end of the service, he sat down, if the platform was high enough, or had a low chair brought. And there were 2 men that traveled with him. And when he got to the end of his message, when he sat down, was 1 man on either side of him. And people would line up, our people would line up for him to pray for them. And he would pray for them. When he finished praying for them, he literally passed out. He would just fall out. And those men would catch him. I've never seen anything like that. But after 5 nights of that, I mean, it was amazing. And I know that there were people among us who thought it was really probably quite melodramatic. Even I thought it was strange. I hadn't seen anything like it. But after 5 nights of that, it was incredible. Because I knew the people. Everyone that he touched and prayed for were healed and marvelously delivered. It was just incredible. It's sort of like Jesus spitting on the ground and making mud and putting it on the eyes, and they washed and he saw. I'm quite sure there were those that thought that was melodramatic. But the results were brilliant. The results were brilliant. God is trying to get us out of our shell of intimidation and self-consciousness and get us into a realm where he can use us. So what I'm saying is this: we are headed for some of the most unusual things that this world has ever known. So my warning is this: be careful what and who you criticize, because it may be of God, and you'll end up fighting God himself. I can tell you, in this country alone, anywhere where they really want it, God is basically, in common everyday street vernacular, turning handsprings for people. Where they don't want it, he doesn't even bother to stop. He just goes right on down the road. Jesus will let you do your own thing, but you'll do it by yourself. He's trying to get a hold of us so he can flow through us and get done what he wants done. This is not part of my notes, but Brother Gerald Mangan, they've given you fits for years. They've given Sister Mangan fits for years. They've given me fits. But you know something? We're still here. And we're still preaching it, and we're going to keep it up. Because what we've done has brought this to this point. You ought to be on your feet, people, because in this place, something is being birthed in this place that will never die. Something is being birthed in this church that will never die. Jesus. Well, I got to know Brother Reeves after that. He saw angels all the time. He talked about angels like you talk about having coffee or tea or orange juice for breakfast. He just always talked about them. So after he had been with us, a couple of years later, I went to the southern Illinois area, and I was preaching in a church there. And Brother Reeves came with some of his folks to hear me preach. Well, at the end of the service, the pastor invited him to go out to eat with us. So we're in a restaurant. I'm at the end of the table here. Brother Reeves is here. The pastor's here. And there are several people around the table. Right in the middle of what I was eating, Brother Reeves just turned to me and said, "You move like David. He was a dancer, too, like you." He said, "I saw Saul throw that javelin at David, and David, with such grace and speed, escaped it." Well, quite frankly, it blew me away. what are you supposed to say after something like that? What do you say after someone says something like that? But I could feel the Holy Ghost fell on me when he said it. I knew he had seen exactly what he said he had seen. He talked to me about angels. He told me, he said, Brother Stoneking, angels come to all of my services. They're there every service. He said they're very military in their fashion. They come through the back door and they will station themselves along the wall. Just like soldiers, they will stand. They will come on the platform and they will just stand. They're very, very military in their fashion. He said, if I preach salvation and pray for people to get the Holy Ghost, he said they will stand and watch, but they don't seem to know what to do with it. Because it is written, they desire to look into this. He said, but the moment we begin to pray for the sick, they know exactly what to do. He said, Brother Stoneking, they begin to move in among the people and touch people. He said, I've watched every one of my saints they have ever touched fell on the floor and they were miraculously healed. For example, if you ever in a large service or a service like this or a big camp meeting and there's someone in the wheelchair and there's no one praying for them and they suddenly get out of that wheelchair and begin to run or walk, if you could see an angel just stepped up either side of them and just lifted them out of the wheelchair and they began to walk. If you've ever stood, and I've watched this a lot of times through the years, there'll be an audience and there'll be maybe one person back here or maybe a person over here, and they haven't done much of anything for the whole service. They're not doing anything now. They're just standing there. And I keep on working with people in the altar service and glance back at them after a while. They're still standing alone, but they've got their hands in the air and they're just sobbing and crying. An angel has walked up to them and touched them because it is written they are ministering spirits to the would-be heirs of salvation. We've got a hold of something, but we don't really work with it. We don't give it place. We don't give credence to it. But I want everything that God has for me. I don't know why this is, but I live in upstate New York, and right in the area where I live, there is a pathway, a routing of travel that angels, they travel back and forth from the East Coast to the West Coast, and sometimes I'm very much aware of the angels in the air over that area. They go back and forth. Angels come to my home. I don't know why they come. I don't know if it's because I have prayed some particular prayer. I don't know if someone's got a burden for me somewhere and they're praying for me and an angel has been sent to minister to me. I don't know, but they come. I don't see them. I have friends that do. I don't see them, but I can feel them. This place is filled with angels tonight. You can feel them. There's one on this platform right behind me. I can feel him. I think the reason I don't see them is because I live alone. And if I walked into a room and there's someone standing there, it would have an effect on me, to understand. Now, if they came with white wings, I would be all right. But just someone that looked like a human being, it would have an effect on me. How many of you can understand that? I don't see them, but I can feel them. Have you ever gone someplace and you know you've never been there before, but when you get there, you feel like you've been here before? How many felt like that? You know why you feel that? Because your angel has been there. Brother Barnes taught me that years ago. Since I've been raised from the dead, I've been in services where the power of God has moved. And I've had full-grown men come to me and stand and wait and just tears run down their face and say, Brother Stoneking, I saw your angel tonight. And I said to this one man, I said, really? He said, yes. He said, Brother Stoneking, when you turned and went like that, he said, another you was standing directly behind you, about 2 feet behind you and about 1.5 feet ahead. He looks exactly like you. I was in one service one night, and someone walked up to me at the end of it. It was at Landmark in Stockton, about 5,000 people there. Someone walked up and said to me, Brother Stoneking, Brother Barnes' angel was here tonight. I said, yes, he was. I had a phone call just the other day. It was interesting. The individual said, Brother Stoneking, I was praying, just really praying, and all of a sudden, I felt you. It was like you were there. He said, I looked around, but you weren't there. He said, I don't understand. I said, well, it's very simple, really. It was my angel. Evidently, you're doing something that reminds my angel of me, and he's drawn to that, and he comes to you. You see, I may look like I'm alone, but I'm not alone.